Okay. So, nurturing children is my passion. I was a teacher, preschool through PhD students at the University of Oregon, not in the world of art at all. But art has been in me and in the fiber of me since I was a child because it was nurtured. And my story starts back with scribbling music and Picasso. What do they have in common? Think back to when you were young. Where did you get your joy in playing and creating? You know, really, where did you, my brother and I climbed to the top of poplar trees and swang back and forth and bounced at each other, pretending we were monkeys. That's just creative play out in the forest. We were poor, so we would take bicycles, take them apart because they didn't work anyway. My brothers were just old enough, we started to spot weld, so we'd make a 2-story bike and run the chain up and down, and we didn't break our necks, but we could have, but it didn't matter because we were having fun and Mom didn't know. And so, and the freedom that we had as children, when I look at the color of your hair, that is one of the things that I think gave us such joy and passion, and the desire to continue to play as children and create. And that's all I am. I'm a child right now, playing in the clay, playing in the mud, getting dirty every day. My notebook is filthy, but it came out of my studio. Okay, and so the scribbles, the music, my parents, Dad went to 6th grade, Mom went to 9th grade. They were both brilliant, bright, but not schooled people. Had to leave during the war and things like that to help at the farm. But we knew that music and art were important. It wasn't about schooling. It wasn't about studying. It was just that my parents would harmonize. My family would sing the midnight mass in German because that's what we did. And we never got together at a family gathering without singing. So, of course, we knew music was to be valued, right? And then the excitement in their faces when we would be going to a school fair of some kind and they would be studying the work that we had up on the walls and so proud of us. That stayed in me. That made me know that art matters. And that can't be taught. That really is something that comes from inside of you and that those people around you nurture. And then, my dad was a custodian. He happened to work at 3M near St. Paul, Minnesota. And you can hear it in my voice. And he, every day at 10 o'clock, had coffee with the president of 3M. The two of them just clicked. They liked each other. The reason I'm telling you that is because one day Dad comes home, and I was in high school, and he had all these tickets to take us to the Minneapolis Institute of Art because it was the first time Picasso had come to the United States. Now, I can't imagine what these tickets cost, and at the time I never even gave it a thought. I was just shocked that we were actually going someplace so cool. And so he took us through the entire museum. And he explained, as we piled out of the station wagon, that on the first floor would be the earliest works, and then as we got up to the 3rd and the 4th floor, we would see his newer works. And he said, now some of this won't make sense, and he kind of explained a little bit about what was going to happen. And we went through the museum, and I'll never forget it. And I now think back to those coffees he had with the president. I'm sure 3M had some free tickets that Dad happened to get a hold of for taking his kids. That's why when the symphony or when the Capitol Theater give out free performance tickets and the Ike and the Davis and the West Valley Theater kids get to go and the Toppenish kids, we don't know what kind of an impact that's going to have for those first few times that you actually get to experience live something. So I wanted to start there, and I won't take you through all of my 74 years. But I will never forget that. We can blow past this. You know, the 4-H thing is another way to nurture that stuff, and a lot of learning there. And then I did my career, I got out of college, I became a teacher, and I love teaching. And then I crossed to the dark side and did school administration. But that was after I won the best sign for picketing on the line with teachers. Okay, so. And I did my career, loved my career, did keynotes at least 2 to 4 times every week for 2 years while I was working for Terry Bergeson around the state. And, you know, it was great, but I still missed being right in the classroom like you were, Gail, with those 3rd graders. The administration is important, and it has its place, and I brought in millions of dollars from grant writing for hopefully improving opportunities for kids here. But then, Terry and I were building a new garage, and it was going to be a 2-car garage. That's all we needed, that's all we wanted, because we have a 360-degree view. Why would we want to block that? I said, nope, we're going to put on a 3rd bank for my studio. Now, I'm still working. She goes, why would you want a studio? Well, because I'm going to be an artist. Well, what are you going to do? I said, I don't know, but I'm not linear. I work in 3D. My first grant I wrote was on cocktail napkins and dinner napkins hung all over the walls in my cubicle because that's how I think. And I said, I think I'll do sculpture, maybe welding. I really love metal. But I was already 60, and I thought, it's not going to get lighter, and I'm not going to get stronger, so maybe a different medium. So I retired, and I took 2 years of classes from Rachel Dorn at YVAA. What a great opportunity. She taught me all the basics that I really needed and directed me toward a lot of videos, so a lot of self-learning based on her basics. And then I went around the country taking classes from some masters and around the Seattle area as well to improve my technique. So that's where I come from. And we'll get it, yeah. Let's keep going and get into the work. Yeah. One more. Yep, oh, back one. One more. Okay. Yeah, we've got a fast finger. Okay, so this was my first sculpture, and primarily what you're going to see in my work are 3 techniques. How many of you know anything about clay building, hand building? Okay, you're going to follow this a little easier. Here's the deal. You can get a wheel, put it down, you can learn to center and throw, and it's a really cool art form, and you can make bowls and all kinds of things. In fact, you could make 2 bowls and tip them upside down, put them together and make a ball, and I do some of that for my totems, when I want to make a tall totem, and if I want that curve, I'll do that. But pretty much I don't do functional work, meaning plates and cups and things like that. Pretty much I do sculpture. And the 3 ways I create a sculpture are 1, roll out a slab of clay. And Rachel had, the first assignment she gave us was making a box out of clay. And then the next one was going to be experiencing how to carve a sculpture out of clay. Well, I don't follow the rules that well, and I didn't want a box because I didn't really need a clay box. So I said, how about I do a box that will be the bottom of my sculpture. So that's what I did. The lower half of the sculpture was a box. Yeah, I added a little tail out the back, but the hip is a piece of clay that I scored, meaning you make it all a bunch of lines, and then you slip. In my case, I've used water, and I pushed it in so it wouldn't fall off when I put it in the kiln. So that's that. And then that black space that gives the illusion of space by the front leg, that I just carved out a little bit. And then I put black glaze in that to give it some depth. So now you painters can start relating to these clay people, right? And so, and then the top is flat, and it has a big hole in it. And the bottom is open, but reinforced with a lot of clay so it's very strong. So the border around the inside of the bottom is thick. Also inside the bottom are four, call them 2x4s, right? If you're going to make a wall and you need something to reinforce, you put those in, and those are there to give it some stability while I was building on it, but also after it was fired. Now, the reason I'm sharing that is because the thing I love about clay is it's like architecture. You can't start building a bridge without a design, a plan, and mathematics. It has to hold weight. You have to understand that the shape is going to affect the strength of that piece. And so I maybe should have been in architecture because it just gets me excited to think the problems through before I begin. So every piece I build, I think about how am I going to keep it from tipping over or collapsing. And that base is extremely strong. And then the second assignment was using an armature, which is a board with a pipe coming up, in this case, right up the middle, and another pipe going up to his nose on an angle. And I took clay, and then I wrapped the pipe in newspaper and tape, so it was a little bit thick. And then I started throwing clay on it, and then shaping it very roughly, and pushing that clay in to make sure there were no pockets, air pockets, because if there is, and you put it in the kiln, the whole thing's gonna blow up. So you have to make sure you're pushing the clay in as you're building it up, building it up, building it out. And then it was finished, and I liked the shape, and I liked the ears because they were hanging down, and this is going to be an outside piece, and nothing would be sitting in those ears like water collecting and then breaking it later. And as soon as I had it perfect, then I cut the head off. Actually, the ears weren't on yet. I did everything but the ears. Then I cut the head off. And then you scoop out all the insides, scoop it, scoop it, scoop it, until you've got walls about a half an inch, 3/4 of an inch thick. And then I did the head. I put it upside down on a foam mat, a foam rubber, and I scooped everything out of that I could get out of it. And that mouth, you can see through it down right to the bottom of that when I put it back together. So then you take the top of the head and you score it, meaning rough it up, and you slip a bunch of stuff on it, clay that's full of water, and you do the same to the bottom half of the sculpture. You put it together, and then you try to make it look good again. You try to, again, make it look like the coyote you wanted in the first place. Then I added the ears, then I added the detail. That's this tall. Now go to the next slide. That has been sitting in my driveway for 16 years. And the reason it holds up and the reason my outdoor pieces hold up is because they're at high fire. That's at 2400 degrees. And the clay compresses and compresses. If you fire, like my birds at cone 04, which means it's about, 1400 degrees. It isn't as compressed, but for a little bird, you could hang it outside in the tree and it'd probably last forever too. The key is outdoor art, never let it collect water. That is my jackrabbit of extinction. It was made at YVAA as one of my experimental projects. And I wanted to do it, even though it kind of makes me sad, just because if you're a farmer, you understand that jackrabbits aren't around for a good reason. Or, we'd have to fight for the fruit. But we don't have them. We've got all these rabbits, but it's rare to see a jackrabbit. And then I started getting into my gigglers. My friend Leo has that first one. It's sitting at his fireplace. If you go out to his place on Memorial Weekend and you do his tour, it's sitting there. And I do more of that because what I want from my clay making is what I had as a child. I just want joy. I'm not doing this for a job because, baby, I've been there, done that. And I don't want a job anymore. I don't want to work to the point that I feel driven. So I want joy. Okay, let's go to the next one. We're going to go through these. Okay, so the coyote First technique is slab, roll it out, build it together. You have to let it dry enough so you can put it together. The second technique is just carving, pushing the clay, carving, cutting it apart, putting it together. This technique is coil building. It's a little tedious. You roll out clay like you did when you were a child until you get this pencil or a PVC pipe about this long, and you keep rolling it and trying to get it out as long as you can. The coils in this were maybe a half an inch in diameter. And then you start at the bottom and you go up. And the trick with clay is that you can't do this in a day or it would collapse because the clay's wet and mushy and it'd just fall. So you do a bit and then you go do something else. Or you use a hairdryer and you cheat a little. But not too much or it'll crack and break and fall apart. It's just, you have to work a long time with clay to understand when you can and when you can't dry things, how fast to dry them. The techniques for drying clay include air dry, walk away, keep your eye on it, keep touching it. Another technique is the hairdryer, get it going a little faster. Another technique is plastic. Like the sculpture I finished today, I couldn't work in the studio for any more than a 1 or 1.5 hour period of time the last 4 days, but I started the sculpture on Thursday. And I wanted to keep adding to it. Well, if it dries, you can't add pieces to it because it'll just fall and break off in the kiln. You have to keep wet clay on wet clay, so when you put pieces together, it becomes one piece of clay, not two pieces of clay. And if there's a crack in it, forget it. Okay, so that's coil building. Now we're going to go fast. This is coil at the top, slab on the bottom, keep going. And go back to that piece, a woman in the Nile bought that, and this is what you know about your art. It is so cool. You put it out there. Then somebody gets it. You have no idea what they see in it, or if they see in it what you saw in it. She walked into box, she saw that, she walked up to it, she was afraid she couldn't afford it, but she really needed to have it. I wasn't there. She told me later. She saw she could afford it, she bought it, she cried, she went home, and I told the staff that whoever buys that, let me go set it up for them so I can show them how. When I went up to her place, her husband passed. She said, I want a sign that you're okay. She was out feeding the horses, and this owl that had never been around came out one morning that she was feeding off the roof, followed her down. The owl was up on the barn. She fed, she was going back in, and that owl swooped her and took off, and she'd never seen it after that or before. So that gives me goosebumps. But that's what you get, those stories. Aren't those the best? Okay. These are my joyful fun pieces. That was a Christmas one. And this gives joy to somebody else. That would be my hairdresser's grandson. Okay? And this, Makerspace asked me to submit a piece into a show they were having. And I thought, Makerspace, I need a space bunny. And I thought of Superman jumping off the tower down there that you could see out the window. And that's how Space Maker came to be.
And there's Chinook Tower in the back.
It is. And that piece is in a local collection right now here in town. And the other technique for building, in addition to I told you, are pinch pots. That's how you start children. Take a ball of clay, put your thumb in it, pinch, pinch, pinch around the bottom, and pretty soon this thing takes the shape of the bowl. The earliest bowls made that we've all seen, primitive bowls, those are all pinch pots. I teach classes at Box, and we start with those all the time. So I took various pinch pots. The back end of that, the buttocks, are 2 pinch pots, and the thighs are pinch pots, elongated, and the head is a pinch pot, and then everything else is slab rolled. Okay? I love cairns. I have a cabin up on the Natchez River. I build cairns all the time, and so this is one of my outdoor totems. Okay, and then this rabbit, I was at a show, get inspiration going to galleries all over. I was at a show in Seattle, and this guy had made these tall, thin people. His medium, I believe, was wood, which, you know, was probably a lot brighter than using clay, but they were tall and whimsical and fun, and so I've done a lot of rabbits that are tall and thin. This one's a little shorter, but my work represents, of course, the agricultural community and the environment I live in with the birds of prey. I live up on Natchez Heights in the desert, so you see stuff get killed all the time, and you know, the birds of prey are fighting for their food too. And then I have friends that are into yoga, so my first one was Downward Bunny. And then, of course, they all have kids, so I had to do the child's pose, okay? And representing the birds of prey, Larson Gallery had a show, Put a Bird on It and Call It Art, both based on the show Portlandia, and this was one of my Put a Birds on It. And this andesite rock on the bottom is all over our property. And I won't tell you about andesite, you can Google that, but andesite rock is beautiful. And so I found small pieces, found someone that could cut the bottom flat, and then I looked for pieces that had a pointy top. So he's hollow on part of his belly with museum wax around that holds it in place. So when I transport it, you can pop it off. Transport the two pieces, and then you can pop them back together.
How big is that?
The wingspan on that is about like this, and about 24 inches. Nope, probably 22 because my kiln is 23.
Okay.
Yeah.
Diagonally, though.
Yeah, I've done. I used to do a lot of that. Forget it. That's not worth my time. This one. That heart with the ring was inspired when I was in early college in gymnastics. I was practicing in the summer in our yard. We had a sewer pipe, a can on the sewer pipe. I took my high school class ring off, put it on the can, and this bird swooped in, took my ring, and took off into the poplar trees my brother and I used to play in. Never saw the ring again. And so when somebody gave me that, I thought, I could use that with a raven, right? Okay. This is from the Put a Bird on It show. It's slab art all around, hollow. The top piece is 4 separate sections put together, but then I had to poke a hole in each section, otherwise it would blow up. Okay, another one of those, we can breeze past that. This was the second year of COVID, and I was going out to my studio to do an owl, and I wanted it to be whimsical, and I do the body first and then the head. I get to the head, and frankly, I'm pissed off. I am not happy. I woke up crabby. I was crabby all day, and this is called self-portrait. A woman on Orcas Island has that one. And then, of course, my birds and bunnies have to talk together. And then these are the songbirds, and I used to try to make songbirds look like the bird they represented, and that just wasn't as much fun. I just love the whimsical. So now I've started with this, and I'm going to do a bunch more this way soon. And then my work is also in relation to calls for art like yours. So this was a mask thing we did at Box Gallery for Halloween. And also in that show was 4 and 20 blackbirds, and there's these birds jumping out of the pie. And I do little things like peeps for Easter, little tray favors, that kind of thing. And then this was also a joyful Easter. He has risen rabbit. And this was a Christmas rabbit that actually popped up on Instagram yesterday because the owner put it with her Seahawks hats because it was joyful when they won. And this was National Library Week, the Read a Rabbit. And of course, go to the next one. See these trout? Pratt, where are you, Mr. Pratt? There you go. There's your trout. So, yeah, we've got to collaborate. And then collaboration. I say collaborate and I smile. I get inspired so much by other artists and collaborating with them and responding to their work. So my dream is to have a show. It's not a dream, it's going to happen. I'm going to have a show. It's going to have 24 of my pieces. I will have those pieces finished by the end of the year. I have 2 done. I have to do 2 each month. I'm finding artists that I feel like I can pull something from the page to do. This was with a poet, Terry Martin, and we did dog dishes. Her poetry lines I put into my dishes. Watching and waiting, your favorite sport apart from us. Okay. Michelle Wiles, I asked to do a piece for the Mount St. Helens show, and this is entitled, Calm Yourself, Helen. And I put the rabbit on her shoulder. We had to figure out again how I was going to do it. I said, don't worry about your sculpture. Just give me a place for a dowel on the shoulder, and I'll take it from there. My friend Pat in Oregon was dying of cancer. I was helping her pass. She was an amazing artist. Long story short, she didn't want people coming to visit her while she was dying. She said, if you're coming, you're drawing. And she put the root on the wall. And we put 3 drawing tables in the garage. And we scheduled people a couple hours Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for the last 6 weeks of her life. And we drew the root, printed the root, but I'm a ceramic person. So she's Irish. So I made ceramic shot glasses for the wake so we could drink Irish whiskey for her. And I made 75 of them. And I was the only one in the show. Her show, called Rooted, was at the Desert High Museum in Bend, Oregon. And she passed on Tuesday when they were picking the work from her garage to go to put up. I said, Pat, don't worry, we'll be there Saturday, just come on over. And so they hung the show. My piece, that next slide, is the only one that wasn't a printmaker or a painter, but they did put mine on the wall, Rooted. Okay. This is Janice Baker on the far right. She does collage, painting, drawing. And I asked her for 3 of her pieces, and I responded to each one of these. And so mine is on the left. This was hers. When you're working with clay, she has legs on hers. Obviously, I didn't want skinny legs on the bottom of the sculpture. And the next one, she had this spear that just was unsettling to me, so I put a fish there instead, and again, changed the bottom a bit. But my show that I want to have is going to be called Off the Pages. I'm going to have 24 sculptures and 24 friends and have all of our work together someplace, someday. Watch for that. It's going to be called, I think it'll be called Off the Pages. That's my garage, and that's the east side. On the west side is my studio, and that's the inside. And so that's kind of one more, I think, and we're done here. I learned from my mistakes. I have a modern dance minor in college, and I love the idea of doing that. But when you're in clay, just don't do that. People just break them. It's just not worth it. So I quit doing those. And these are the people, too. Mike Heiler, a good friend of mine, I can call him to brainstorm. Michelle Wiles and I started at the same time, and we think through all of your painter friends, all of the people that support us. Leo will sit down and critique with me. He saves ideas and pictures from magazines and inspires me and encourages me. And Penn, the people, Pat is the one in Bend that's passed, but Penn used to come up just to hang out in the studio and just talk about what I was doing, and she'd engage me. And friends like that are worth gold, right? And so, yeah, let's go to the end. We're done. Yeah, we're done. We're done. I think that...
Isn't that you?
That's me at the Minneapolis Walker Institute in the Sculpture Garden. I don't go home without going there, if I can. If I can work it in, I love it, obviously. It encourages me. Lots of people doing rabbits. Sarah Geddes, Brian Holtzinger, and I had a show out at Box, and I still look every time I can. I'd way rather have a collaboration show than a solo show for myself because it just gives me inspiration and it's fun. And then that piece was from a famous sculpting artist, and it was an intense 5-day, my back hurt by the end of every day, 8 a.m. to 5-hour break, that was it. Intense. It took 5 days to make that because it was about expressions. You had to do this expressive face, and she gave you the photo, and then you had to do it. And to get everything right, the proportions of the eyes, it's all mathematical. It's dissecting the face where the mouth is in relation to the ears. As painters, you were taught that. We do the same thing. So we do have a lot in common for those of you that draw and paint. And I continue to learn, and I hope I will till the day I die. So, any questions? Thank you. Did you have a question?
A question about your glazing.
The glazing is another whole 30 minutes. So, no. But if it's outdoor, I like to use a good glaze, a heavy glaze, something that will really repel water and not absorb anything. And it's easier for me to avoid, it's easier for me to control the way water's going to flow off. So now, on the sculptures, like Put a Bird on It, the white one that had the square at the top, I just took black glaze, and it's called, what's it called? And you pull it off. And so you put the black glaze wherever there's indentations that you want to capture, and then you take a sponge and you wipe it all off, and it'll stay in those areas. And I love that. And then a little of that with a little glaze, and you can paint with the glaze and play with it. So you can use it really kind of like paint and not put it everywhere.
Do you have a favorite kind of clay that you use when you're making especially big pieces?
I don't do big pieces because of my kiln, and I don't really want a bigger kiln. I like kind of where I am, and it's easy to handle and transport, which is the pain with sculpture. But I use glacier clay from Tacoma Clay, and then I've got a dark clay with speckles in it that I use if I do any functional work. And right now I'm doing 75 bowls for my 75th birthday, and I'm going to give them all away. That's kind of another thing I'm working on. So it just, yeah, glacier for the size of mine is my favorite. Okay?
So you're doing functional art? Fine.
Well, I started doing that.
Are these bowls, are you going to make them all upside down so you can't use them?
No. No, I actually am going to have a party, and then you're going to have salad for your bowl.
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
Yeah. If any of you are interested in showing me some of your work, you know where I'm going with my show. So I don't know what you, but I've already talked to Mr. Pratt about I'd love to do that trout back there, but I have to have your piece for 2 years, or a picture of it for a year, because I'm making them this year, but you can't sell it for 2 years, because I want to get a show 2 years from now and put your work in it with mine. So it's a 2-year commitment, really. Okay. Thank you so much for having me.